Hello and welcome to Forest Tech. As always, we bring you tech reviews, tips, and tutorials. But today, it's a collaboration. We are in the lockdown with Mark Holtze. You see that little thing there called lens. If you ever wonder what this lens is and how capable this tiny little thing could be, well, he's the guy you should go out and check out. He's all passionate about these lenses. The nitty-gritty details, he knows about it. So without further ado, let me call him in and let's have a chat with him.
Hi Raze, thank you so much for having me. This is so cool. We're having like a live conversation through time and space.
Absolutely. Start with something. Why lenses?
Why lenses? It's weird because I think I've been doing YouTube for a little while now, and it was kind of organic as to where I was going to kind of focus my content. And when I first started, I had absolutely no real idea. I just kind of wanted to make videos, and with what subject matter I wasn't 100% sure. And then I stumbled across my great grandfather's old 8mm film reels, which I kind of I had screened myself. And then I kind of I had this idea, maybe I could take some of these film reels and capture them. I just recorded them with my camera off the screen. And they were it was like a travel log essentially from the 1960s. It went all across Canada. So I captured those individual reels, and I cut out the very family specific stuff and just kept it very general, and then sort of packaged it up with music and just a little intro and extra, and then posted it to my YouTube page, and it went national. The national news picked it up as kind of check out Mark Holtz's great grandfather's travel films from the 60s, and then it just things just kind of took off, and it was in the comments where you were getting all these people who were gushing about being able to kind of see where they grew up and kind of reflect on their childhood, because there's not a lot of footage that exists from the 1960s in a very kind of a specific sense, in a sense that people can look at it and just identify. And that's what the footage sort of had done. So it connected with people, and then I kind of, from there I sort of saw the magic of YouTube as a platform with the community building. And then my great grandfather was also big into photography, and my grandfather was big into photography, and my dad was big into photography and video as well. And I've made a career of it, so I kind of know where that sort of came from. And it was sort of seeing my grandfather's lenses packed away. I kind of got this idea. It would be cool to adapt that lens and take photos of my family and the way my grandfather did with my dad and the way my dad did with us. So it was just a matter of getting an adapter and putting that lens on the camera. And from that moment, the second I looked through the EVF, I was sold. There's something here. And then the rest is history.
That's awesome, man. Because I was literally going to ask this from you, that, the sense of filming, the sense of cinematography, the angles, the whole editing, and perhaps the main thing, the storytelling. Where does this really come from, for you? And you just kind of explained it already that, it sort of came from the legacy, from where your grandfather and your dad yeah?
Yes, legacy, absolutely. Legacy was sort of the passion that sort of ignited me to, ignited my fire to actually want to dedicate time to doing this. And then because I've always loved video making, I've been making videos since I had a camera in my hand, and I've dedicated a career to it. This idea of telling a story and somehow making it relatable to people is sort of inherent, in my documentary and scripted series stuff. But I guess with lenses, it's what is the story of a lens? There's a personal story, and there's sort of the history of these lenses, right? The Helios, for example, has a World War II, Cold War sort of history that is just interesting. And when you look at it, it really kind of, there's something to be said here. So we could test the lens, and we can also talk about where this lens came from. And that, I think, adds just a little bit of intrigue to the actual content.
I mean, there are tons of lenses out there on your shelves. It's filled with lenses. I'm going to show that snapshot to all my friends and all my viewers as well. So if you have to recommend, let's say, 2 lenses to someone who's beginning their career with either content creation, or they're getting into filming, or they're starting with their film school or something, and if you have to just suggest maybe one or two, because usually what happens is people go with basic DSLR setups, so they have like a stock lens going on with it. They really don't have the knowledge or probably the budget to start with something expensive. Now, happening to have legacy lenses or old classic lenses, vintage lenses, so to speak, and then using them with the help of a filter itself requires a certain amount of knowledge. Not everyone is capable of doing that. And then there are some fake deals out there on eBay and here and there that people sometimes end up buying something which is really not useful. So how would you recommend, and what would you recommend in terms of lenses to anyone who's starting up, and which would be those two lenses to start up with?
So I think I will say straight out the gate that these lenses, these legacy lenses, work better with mirrorless cameras than they do with DSLRs, only because sometimes there's like a flange distance issue. This is like a technical thing with the lens that like prohibits you from getting infinity focus. And also optical viewfinders on modern DSLRs aren't really meant for you to be autofocusing, so it makes looking through the optical viewfinder, the light through the lens, a little bit more challenging. But you can remedy that with live view. So even if you are on a DSLR, and I had a 6D Mark II, and I used these lenses no problem on them. But I guess mirrorless are definitely easy because it just needs a straight up, $9 to $20 adapter, and it's just a matter of mounting the lens and putting it on the camera. And then from there, it's really about going back to manual focus and using whatever aids that these cameras, like be a cinema camera, a DSLR, or a mirrorless camera, whatever aids that help with the focusing. But so there is a bit of work required to it. Like they're cheap and they can render some really great results, but it's not necessarily 100% plug and play. You have to kind of work at it a bit. But I do think that investment of time will teach you a lot and will really, really help you improve your photography. But in terms of lenses I would recommend, it's mainly because it's very, very popular, it's pretty cool, and it's cheap. The Helios 44-2 or 44M, I would recommend that as lens number one. It's a 58mm focal length on a full frame and an f2. So it's fast, but it also has this characteristic that a lot of people talk about with vintage lenses in terms of character. It's swirly bokeh, which is really just optical vignetting. So it's at the edges, the light swirls a bit. It works. It's more evident on full frame cameras than APS-C sensor cameras, but it's still a look that is kind of cool. And it's relatively cheap lens. It's between 35 to probably $75 US. You can find those for online, or really, really cheap if you're at an estate sale or somewhere where they're kind of giving or handing out these old lenses. But on cameras, a second lens, it's tough to say a second lens, because so vintage macro lenses I find are particularly fantastic. Mostly because modern day macro lenses, you need to kind of manually focus anyway, because a lot of the photography is too close. The autofocus isn't that great. And the Super Takumar 100mm f4 was the second vintage lens I purchased. And up until I got the 50 and the Contax Carl Zeiss 60, that was the lens I used for almost all of my macro work in my videos, and even just my photography. It is really, really sharp, and it just feels really, really good. So I guess to summarize it, I would say the Helios 44-2 and the Super Multi-Coated Takumar 100mm macro f4.
Super advice here. So what I'll do, guys, for you and for the fans and viewers, I'll put down all the shots of these lenses that he has mentioned, so you guys can drop down into his videos, have a look there, find out more details, and see how you can actually attach them to your camera. I suppose you've got all the videos covered here, Mark, for us, right?
Yes.
Awesome, man. That's awesome. Right. So Mark, since you said that now it's become your career, you're on YouTube, perhaps besides YouTube, you're also regularly working as a film editor, and you're into that filming scene, you're professionally doing these things. So
yes,
out of all this, if I talk particularly about your YouTube career, if you have to pick one of your favorite video, and by that I don't mean that's got the most views, Because in my case, on my channel, if I look at the video that's got the most views, it's certainly not my favorite video, but
Yeah, no.
yeah, but there is that personal affection with a certain piece that you've created, if it's a creative piece. So which one is your favorite video? Tell us, and why is it your favorite?
So my favorite video is one. It's called why. Let me think of remind myself of the name of it. It's why you should screen your old home movies, and it was basically it just sort of summarized in like 3 minutes what my process was with discovering my great grandfather's old film reels and how screening those, like these were 8mm film, very, very old motion picture film. They'd probably been in my parents' closet. They probably hadn't even seen light in like 40 or 50 years.
These films are like a portal into the past, as if somebody had taken your memories and splashed them onto the wall. To describe the feeling, it's nostalgia. To see my great-grandfather, who I had only known before in a series of photographs, how he moved, how he smiled, how he carried himself, was surreal.
And this was all just because I had some curiosity and I took some effort to like load up some old reels. And then I shared those all with my family, and they all absolutely adored it. Like, it's really hard to convey the reaction they had over it because they hadn't seen this footage either. And they're seeing their mom and dad from 50 years ago, and they're seeing themselves when they were just kids. And like we record everything now, so we've got everything right now is well documented.
About a year ago, I stumbled across my family's old 8mm film reels. It was right after my grandmother passed away, and being my last living grandparent, the discovery of the reels was motivated by a newfound hunger to know more about my family's past.
That would be my favorite video for sure, I think, just because it means so much to me, and it sort of like is the catalyst, what started this whole thing. So
Amazing, man. We'll definitely go and check that out once again. And before we end this collaboration call, there's so much that we can discuss. We can sit here for hours. But it's just a creative debate is so interesting. You just can't stop, can you? So one thing, apart from all the cinematography and your style of filming and the lenses and all the things that we see on your channel, there's one thing I've noticed, which is particularly very good about you, which I really like and personally would like to know, because that area of mine is weakness and I would like to improve that. I'm sure there are a lot of viewers out there who would like to know this as well, is your sound design. Now, since you are into lenses and filming is a very different part, sound design is a completely different section. And I think most of your visuals, recent visuals, if I pick up a few last videos, they've nailed the sound design. What's your secret? How do you do it? What's your thought plan? How do you structure it? Just give us some advice so the viewers can use it and they can just structure their videos accordingly as well with the sound design.
Sound design. So sound design is like, even though like I work as an editor and we don't do the final mixes in my edit, we just prepare all the elements for review and all that stuff. One of the things I've learned doing that is how much taking time to create sort of a sound design, especially a unique sound design, one that's not just the standard stuff that you would hear. And not everything calls for that, but some things do. If you put that effort into that beginning, it really goes a long way in helping sell a scene or just a documentary in its entirety. So because the nature of filmmaking, all the sound design is done after the fact, I always took particular interest in that. I couldn't believe when I was young that like Star Wars, all those sounds were created from a sound designer, by recording and mixing. That blew me away. So I think it's kind of taking sort of that philosophy or that knowledge and incorporating them into my things. And it's something I've done for a long time. So like my sound effects library is massive. I pretty much have a sound for anything and everything. And then it's just a matter of like seeing what motivates it. So not everything calls for this very over-the-top sound design, but it's a nice way to sort of punctuate certain beats, and that really just helps with the audience's experience, right? So the number one thing when I'm looking at sound design is like, what's motivating it? Is there something that can motivate a specific sound? And then what sound can I put there to help it out, right? And you have to be careful not to go too crazy with it because like it can become very, very overwhelming.
When I adapted my first lens just over 2 years ago, I had no idea that connection would evolve to this point. And what started out as a way to get back into photography has become an evolution in my professional career. And this lens is the symbol of that transformation. The perfect blending of my two favorite things, vintage lenses and cinematography. And inside this masterfully crafted housing beats the heart of a silver.
Let's say you just take your on camera and just drop it down, and then you lay a music track. You'll find the rhythm between the music track and the rhythm of your speaking. There's a balance there that you can be out of sync and you can be in sync with it. It's very subliminal, but like it goes a long way. And then the same thing when you start adding sound design. There's a rhythm there that needs to match with either the music or the narrative or dialogue that's happening at the same time. So experiment with it and play with it, but definitely taking the time to like add it, I think goes a long way. And like because you've noticed it, like that work wasn't a waste of time. You know, it actually adds to the video overall presentation as much as the story does, as much as the cinematography does, as much as the lighting does, right? You're taking all of those things and making it a complete package. But I definitely think sound is one of those things as we as an audience, like it immerses us. Like if you close your eyes, you can still picture what's around you, even the tone of the room. Like if somebody leaves a room that was in the room, like the sound of the room changes, and if you listen for it, you can actually hear that. So I think sound is like, I mean, it's a sense that we're really attuned to. And so it's just a matter of taking time and like going nuts with it, I think.
So before we let you go, Mark, your intro, particularly that Mark Holtze logo that you've built behind you, you usually see that around, and it's just amazing. I really like that because there's so many good designs out there, so many YouTubers making some really extraordinary stuff out there. I really like the feel of it. It's unitone, it's clear, and I like simplistic design. So what's the plan behind it? How did you game plan that? Did you make it yourself? Is it a do-it-yourself project of some sort, or did you get it from somewhere?
Well, okay, so like for me, it's funny because I've run my own business for so long and I've never settled on a logo before. But a friend of mine who he's a designer. He is a fantastic designer. We started talking about branding and logos and stuff like that, and he's taught me a lot. Strive Design is his company. Anyway, so he just really wanted to like build me a logo, so he kept firing me off these designs, and I'm like, those are cool. And then he came up with that one. His process was really interesting because he would ask me questions, and like the questions it's kind of like very much like an interview process, right? So like, just to kind of get a sense of something. And then we would talk, he would send me some samples and we'd talk about some stuff, and then he'd like, okay, I'm not done yet, I'm gonna keep going. And I gave him no direction. Like I was like, I was basically like, I like this, I like that, I don't like that. And he's like, cool. And then would ask me some questions and follow up. So he designed the logo, like that logo right there is all him. And I think it's like the second he sent it to me, I loved it. I think it was a fairly simple process, but because he's really, really good. But I actually really liked the interview process that led us there. Like there's a story, there's logic. It's not just about a cool design. It actually has meaning, right? And then I guess he sent me the neon light logo, and he was getting his logo done. I was like, yeah, let's do that. And then from there was just a slow process of like, okay, we can brand the top of the video with the logo and your name, and then we can put it as a little bug in the bottom, left right-hand corner. And then, I like the introductions for YouTube pages, but like, a lot of times they kind of just take up time. So like not everybody wants to watch the same 8-second animation that bridges the introduction to the body. I like that it's there, but like I just found that I just don't know. There was nothing in the preset world that I really found interesting. And then again, Carmen at Seeker came up with, he found that logo and a glitch animation. I'm like, dude, that's freaking perfect. So then I just tweaked it a bit and that's it, all done. And then sound design, there's lots of sound design to
It's awesome to have you here, Mark. We're going to have a chat session again sometime soon, I hope, with something new. If filming, cinematography, lighting, and sleek but clever sound design is your thing, then he's the guy for it. Let's give him a big thumb ups for being here, and let's see him again sometime soon. Right, Mark?
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me. It's so funny. Right when you said give him the big thumbs up, I'm thumbing up. Right before you said that, I'm giving the camera thumbs up.
All right, man, then.
I was like, can you see me? Can you see me here?
You never know. It's a digital age, man.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Cheers, man. So there we go, guys. This was Mark Holtze in the lockdown. I hope that I've tried to bring out the best of him so you can utilize what you've learned from him. And if there are still some questions, put them down in this video, put them down on his channel, on his videos, and we guys will get back to you. And if you like what you see, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. And I'll see you soon with another video. Till again, Forest Tech signing out.